The GNOME desktop is the first free desktop. It was created in about 10 years ago, and it's been evolving. We're just about ready to release GNOME 3.0 this year. We're very excited about that. I have a few questions for people. If you could give a show of hands, that would be great. I'm wondering how many people here have experience with GNOME. How many of you are GNOME users? Woohoo! There's lots of you out there. I'm glad to see that. How many of you? How many of you are GNOME contributors? How many of you do development work or help in various ways in the GNOME project?
Just later, okay? Just later.
Yeah, many of the usual suspects. Glad to see that. Okay. How many people here are students? Not too many students. That's interesting. Okay. Well, the GNOME Foundation is an organization that supports the GNOME community. The GNOME community provides the GNOME desktop, and the GNOME Foundation supports. We have a mission of creating a free desktop that's accessible to everyone, regardless of their ability to pay, physical ability, or the language that they speak. And that's an important thing. It's important to be able to provide technology to people across the world without creating barriers. We promote the GNOME Free Desktop. The GNOME Foundation manages those financial, marketing, and legal needs of the GNOME community, and we help to set the direction of the GNOME project. The GNOME Foundation is made up of about 400 people, and those people are mainly volunteers, and any qualified GNOME contributor can become a GNOME Foundation member. It's just necessary to apply for membership, and your credentials are reviewed, and you can become a part of the community. People are important to GNOME. People are the volunteers who participate in the GNOME community are those people who make everything happen, including this event. The GNOME Foundation is a Section 503c charity in California in the United States, and in order to be a charity, there's certain regulations you have to follow. There's certain tax requirements, there's certain legal processes, and the GNOME Foundation takes care of managing all of those aspects. And the benefit of being a charity is that the income that we receive is all tax-free. Part of the structure that's required by law is that the GNOME Foundation must have a board of directors, so that there's 7 people, including myself. I'm the secretary of the board of directors, who make decisions and help things to move along. And there's an advisory board that's made up of different companies that work with the GNOME project. And the members of the advisory board are appointed, and they help to provide direction to the GNOME community. And the GNOME Foundation has a small staff of 2 people. One of them is Stormy Peters, our CEO. 2 years ago, when the GNOME.Asia conference was in Beijing, both Stormy and I came to speak. It's nice to see many of you again. It's nice to see that the Asian community is growing. Last year I wasn't able to come, but Stormy came, and this year Stormy wasn't able to come, and I'm here. So I think it's important for people from the board of directors to come to events like this and help people to understand what the GNOME community is all about. And Emily Chen, who has been organizing, doing much of the work organizing the GNOME.Asia event, along with the rest of the GNOME.Asia volunteer community. She just was elected to the board of directors, so woohoo! Our advisory board is made up of a lot of organizations. Many of them are organizations that use GNOME technologies. And through working with these partners, we get direction and resolve issues and conflicts that arise. So what is it that the GNOME Foundation Board of Directors does? One of the main things that we do is we do event planning, including this event and Hackfest that we have throughout the year in order to focus on different development aspects of the desktop. The GNOME community tends to be largely informal. When we get together for a lot of our events, we end up sitting in rooms and hacking together. And it's a very vibrant and fun community to be involved with. The GNOME Foundation right now is working on several programs, including a women's outreach program and an accessibility outreach program, so that women with an interest in getting involved with the GNOME project can apply for grants in order to receive an amount of money for participating in doing development work. And the purpose of the Women's Outreach Program is to encourage more women to be involved with free software, and specifically the GNOME project. And the Accessibility Outreach Program is similarly very important. It's a very strong part of our goal in the GNOME community to make sure that the GNOME desktop is accessible to people who have disabilities, people who are blind, people who have motor impairments, and the Accessibility Project is one of the ways that we focus our attention on providing the tools that they need. The GNOME Foundation promotes ideas and projects, and we facilitate with issues that within the community, between the advisory board and the development community and the volunteers. The GNOME Foundation produces regular communications. We have an annual report that we produce every year to keep people in the community aware of what we're doing. If you have an interest in the GNOME community, I'd recommend that you take a look at it. We deal with financial management and we do fundraising. We do marketing and press management and a lot of administration. So it sounds like a lot of fun, doesn't it? In the past year, we've been working to serve the community. We're currently focused on planning for the Berlin Desktop Summit in 2011. Once again, the GNOME and the KDE communities are gathering together, just like we did last year in Gran Canaria. And we're going to be focusing on more cross-platform aspects of the desktop. Things like GStreamer and dbus and other technologies that are shared across desktops like KDE and GNOME and XFCE. We have a new advisory board member, Limo, in the mobile space. Stormy did a lot of great work working with Limo to get them on board. In the last year, we had a record number of Hackfests. We had over 10 Hackfests in the past year, more Hackfests than we've had in any previous year. I think one reason for that is because GNOME 3.0 is coming out soon, and naturally we've needed to do a lot of organization and working together and planning to try to make that release as successful as we can. We've done a lot of work improving our fundraising. We've done a lot of work with our merchandise. We've been working on our Friends of GNOME program. We've been doing a lot of work marketing it and promoting it. And we've increased revenue from the Friends of GNOME program by 200%, I believe.
Do you have an idea of the ratio between sponsorship, Friend of Gnomes, and the store percentage?
The GNOME Foundation, I have a slide for that later. I'm getting to that. we've one of our focuses that we've been focusing on lately, much more strongly, is focusing on promoting GNOME in the developing world. We just recently set up the developing world list at GNOME.org for people with an interest in promoting GNOME technologies in the developing world. We just had a GNOME presence at the Idlelo conference in Ghana, and we're working more to increase our presence in those parts of the world where free software has a much stronger chance of increasing market share. The GNOME Foundation has been working a lot with the different sub-teams within the GNOME community, such as marketing and the accessibility teams. And those teams have become a lot more productive over the past year as a result of that effort. And we're currently working to hire a system administrator. So these are the sorts of things that have been keeping us busy. Now, this is what GNOME 3.0 looks like, where the GNOME community is working very hard at the moment to make GNOME 3.0 as successful as possible. At GWADC 2 weeks ago, the schedule slipped 6 months, so we're now planning to release GNOME 3.0 next March instead of this September. But we think that with that additional 6-month time, we'll be able to release a much more exciting product. Making GNOME 3 a success is the #1 priority of the GNOME Foundation at the moment. And the things that the GNOME Foundation is doing to make that happen is we've been, as I said, organizing relevant events like Hackfests in order to, we had 2 marketing Hackfests in the past year. We had a usability Hackfest where we took a good hard look at the GNOME shell design and a lot of the improvements that that we're seeing in recent development in GNOME shell have come out of these Hackfests, so that's very exciting. We've been working with the advisory board, all of the companies that work with the GNOME product, and making sure that they're all on board with the GNOME 3 plan. And one exciting thing about GNOME shell is that since it's designed to work with OpenGL, which is what's used in smartphones, GNOME shell really positions the GNOME desktop to be a desktop that'll be effective not just on desktops, but also on notebooks and mobile devices. And there's the one laptop per child computer, which uses GNOME technologies. And on the bottom, there's a GPS unit that uses GNOME technologies. So in answer to your question, Fred, how does the GNOME Foundation make money? Through lots of sweat and tears, I assure you. Primarily how we get our money is through advisory board fees. This past year we raised our advisory board fees from $10,000 to $20,000. So larger companies are paying twice as much as they were before in order to be a part of the advisory board aspect of the GNOME community. And smaller organizations are paying smaller fees. We have a sliding scale for different types of organizations. But the bulk of our money comes from advisory board fees. You saw the many logos we had on the slide before, and so the GNOME Foundation makes about $20,000 from each of those companies. So that's probably, just a rough number, probably about $200,000, I'd guess. Secondly, when we hold our events like Hackfest, many times different companies sponsor those events and provide us money in order to promote a specific aspect or technology of the desktop. For example, we're going to have a Hackfest coming up in just a month or two about GTK. So different companies that have an interest in promoting GTK development would likely sponsor events like that. We get money that way. The Friends of GNOME program is, if you go to the website up there, GNOME.org/friends, individuals like yourself can donate money to the GNOME Foundation to help us do the things we do, like plan events like this. So if you're having a good time and learning a lot of things and being productive and you want to give back to the community, that's a great way to do it. I think I really didn't brush up on my numbers, but I think last year we made about $20,000 for Friends of GNOME, and this year, in the past year, we've made, I think, $50,000, which is slightly more than double. Mostly through an effort of promoting the Friends of GNOME program more diligently, and by focusing the Friends of GNOME program towards the system administration. We need someone to be a system administrator, and we created a thermometer and encouraged people to donate enough money so that we could hire one. And I suppose not surprisingly, we discovered that with incentives like that, we get a lot more money. Looking forward, what is the GNOME Foundation doing? I explained before that we're have the Women's Outreach Program. There's a URL up there if you know any women with an interest in working on GNOME technologies. The GNOME Foundation is giving grant money to encourage projects, and we're interested in getting proposals. We have an Accessibility Hackfest in October at GTK Hackfest. The Boston Summit's coming up in November in Boston. And there's a Developer Documentation and Tools Hackfest in December, followed by a WebKit, and then the Desktop Summit next August. So you see we have a rather full plate of activities planned. The GNOME Foundation is primarily driven through volunteer effort. And it's an exciting organization and with lots of learning and career and networking opportunities. It's a great way, for example, for students to get involved with as volunteers and gain experience working on applications that are used in production environments by world-class companies. If you do work on a project like GNOME, you can find your work being shipped by companies like Red Hat and Canonical, it's a great way to build a resume and real-world experience. And a lot of people find that through working as volunteers with the free software community that job opportunities arise. So it can be a very exciting and rewarding way to be involved. And the GNOME Foundation is very excited to help all of you or any of you to help mentor you. The Bug Squad team and the accessibility teams are just two examples of sub-projects within the GNOME community where we need help. Specifically, some of the things that the GNOME Foundation needs help with is with fundraising, developing new sponsors, especially in local areas, and helping to find new sources of revenue. So we need help with making our women's outreach program successful and developing marketing materials for the upcoming GNOME 3.0 release. Paul Cutler, a few months ago, took over the responsibility of being more than a few months ago, maybe about a year ago, took over the responsibility of being the lead of the GNOME marketing team. And he's done an amazing job preparing us for the GNOME 3 release, but there's a lot of work left to be done. Community development. The GNOME community has a lot of users groups around the world, and we could really use more community managers, people who have an interest in organizing people to promote free software in GNOME. There's a strong need for people to help with localization, translating GNOME applications to work in different languages. And with helping to plan all of the events that you see that we're having our plate. At Guadalajara, the GNOME Foundation was selling this T-shirt. It promotes the relationship between the OLPC and the Sugar Lab communities. The OLPC project, Emily has the T-shirt there. The OLPC project provides laptop computers to people in the developing world to children in the developing world, and it uses GNOME technology. So by participating as a volunteer in the GNOME community, you're helping projects like the OLPC project, which helps to educate children who are disadvantaged. And that's just an example. Oh, there's an OLPC laptop right back there. and through projects like that, I'm selling this T-shirt for 15 euros. I'm not sure what that translates. So as I was saying, the GNOME Foundation is an exciting community to work for. We work on projects that help people. We are focused on providing technologies that are free and can be deployed throughout the world at very low cost, which is how projects like OLPC are able to provide laptops to children in the developing world. Through being involved with a project like GNOME, providing tools like accessibility for free accessibility tools for people who have physical disabilities, through providing localization in third world languages, we make it possible for people around the world to use technology with no barriers of entry. So I think that's a project that we all can get behind, and I appreciate all of you coming and listening to me talk to you and explain to you what the GNOME project is and how the GNOME Foundation supports the GNOME project and how we work. And I want to thank you all for listening to me, and I encourage all of you to get involved and help out. It's a very exciting project with a lot of opportunities. Thank you.
谢谢大家。接下来我们下半场的议程会由 Fred 来帮我们介绍GNOME 在教育界的发展。让我们掌声欢迎 Fred。Fred。 OK， 我们现在 Q&A 时间。
Are there any questions? They brought me back out here, so somebody has to ask one.
I have one.
Okay.
So if I want to be a GNOME Foundation member, what do I do? What's the first step?
Well, the first step is to get involved with the GNOME community. If you go to mail.gnome.org, you'll see that there's a lot of forums where people within the GNOME community discuss different aspects of how the community functions. There's a mailing list for the marketing team, for the release team, for developers, for people with interest in graphic design, people who work on localization, and users groups. So depending on your interest, there's a legal list where people who have experience with people who are lawyers and interested in free software are involved there. So depending on your skills, there's a wide variety of different teams within the GNOME project that you can get involved. And after you've built up an amount of contributions, then you submit an application to the GNOME Foundation to become a member. And the GNOME Foundation has a membership committee which reviews those applications and determines if the amount of contributions is of a sufficient level, and those members are approved into the foundation. So that's how the process works. There's also the foundation list at GNOME.org, which is the mailing list where all foundation members communicate. You can join the list even if you're not a foundation member, and you can participate in discussions. So that's another way to get involved and to talk about what the community is currently working on. Any other questions?
Hello. I have a little question about Ubuntu and GNOME, because the few days ago I saw the news about Ubuntu don't have a plan to fork the GNOME, but GNOME changed a lot, do some effort on GNOME 3, and it does not do very much work to feedback to upstream. So how do GNOME and Ubuntu will maintain the compatible on GNOME 3? Because
well, the GNOME Foundation has very good relations with all of the distributions, including Canonical, and how much particular companies contribute to the GNOME project is not really a factor in terms of being able to participate in the GNOME community. The GNOME community is a free software project, so individuals and organizations are free to participate in whatever capacities they feel comfortable. It's not like the GNOME Foundation requires organizations to contribute in certain ways. Canonical contributes in the way that they want, and the GNOME Foundation is happy to work with them. So there's not really an issue. I don't work for Canonical, and I don't really know what their plans for the future in GNOME 3 are. But GNOME 3 is coming out in March, and I suspect it will take some time for various distributions like Canonical to adopt GNOME 3. And it's hard to say how quickly that'll happen. It, I think, will largely depend on how the general community receives GNOME 3 when it comes out.
Can I add something to the question? I can answer that.
Okay. Ubuntu is currently not using the GNOME shell because it's under development. In the next release, in Maverick Meerkat, it won't be there yet because it's still being tested and it's not ready for prime time yet. But it's now in the official repository. You can download GNOME shell on Ubuntu right now. It's in Universe, I think, or on another repository, but it's there by default. And in Maverick, you can also download GNOME shell. It's definitely going to adapt whatever GNOME's gonna push.
thank you. Thank you for your explaining.
I have a question. If I want to use GNOME 3 today, can I?
Of course you can. But it really depends on what distribution you're using. Each distribution has its own delivery mechanism of packages. So, and different distributions might be better at providing up-to-date versions of the latest code than others. Apparently the packages are available for Canonical. Since a lot of the GNOME shell work is being done by Red Hat, I would assume that Fedora would be another good platform to work on if you wanted the latest GNOME shell code. But if you're using another distro, you'd have to check with your vendor.
No more questions?
No more questions?
还有问题吗？